Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Time with Rinpoche with me, Pastor David. And today it's going to be about my journey on becoming a writer. So as usual, before we begin, I will refresh the screen and see who is on and say some hellos to you guys out there. Hi, good evening. Oops, sheesh, that was loud. Okay, as I'm waiting for more people to come on, what I'll do is let me start from the beginning. Okay, you know, like just like everybody, like you, like me, like anybody, you know, when we're young, one of the things we always do when we're young is to dream about our future, what we're going to be, what we're going to do. What's going to be our occupation? What's going to be our, our passion in life? And for some people, it's to be an artist. For some people, it's to be an engineer, to be an astronaut. A favorite one is an astronaut. Another favorite is to be a writer. I remember when I was reading my books when I was young, I love adventure. I love Enid Blyton. I loved Famous Five, when I was very young. Then I went into sci-fi, and I went into fantasy, books in fantasy, Dune, and a lot more. I can't, offhand, I don't remember the books I read. Lord of the Rings was one of the books I remember reading. And, in the earlier years, when I was so fascinated with the worlds that were created within the cover of a book, I thought, being a writer sounds cool, sounds like something I could do. But it just remained as a fantasy, as something when adults ask us, what are you going to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? So I would say, I want to be a writer. At one point, it was a writer because I was reading a lot. Another point, I wanted to be a detective because I was reading books on forensic science, on investigation. There are a lot of books in the library that I used to patronize, where there were books on how the steps on becoming a private investigator, and in different ways where you look for clues, and it's a picture book. It's like it shows you all these things, and it shows you ciphers and how to create ciphers. Cipher is a code where words are jumbled up to encode something, a message or something like that, and lots of things like when I was young. At one point I wanted to be, a scientist, which was out of the window real fast because, when you actually study the subject is another thing. When you're reading about it, it sounds fun. I wanted to be an astronomer as well. So those, this is something that all kids go through, And okay, now that more people has come on. Hi Sharon, hi Pastor Shin, hi Andre Nugroho, Sihananto, and Jillian and Lily, thank you for joining, and Miaoki. Yeah, I was just talking of what I wanted to be when I was a kid. And the story is the same for almost everybody. And as I grew up, as I studied, I was not much of a student in school. I was, at best, mediocre. At best mediocre. And the only thing I kind of excelled was more historical, history, because I was fascinated reading about, especially on subjects on civilizations and stuff like that. So yeah, when I was young, I was kind of I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kept changing it. And I don't know, some people did keep it for a while until they actually went into school, went into college. Then it became more like a cookie cutter. It was just, business. It was just accounts. It was just, I don't know, things like that. When I studied, I went into computer science. IT. And lo and behold, I never actually, after when I started working, I got a Bachelor of Computing. I didn't go into the IT industry at all. I went to sales. It was so funny because now in hindsight, I think it was funny, but at the time, my parents was not amused with me at all. Was not amused at all. So yeah, I can see that a lot of people relate to what I'm saying. A lot of folded hands. So anyway, yeah. Then when I came back, I went to the chronology is I went to school, then I went to college. I went into IT. I studied IT, so I did my final year in Australia, in Monash, in Melbourne. Then I came back, and then I was looking for a job. And then I found my first job, not in IT, of course, in Canon Marketing Malaysia, in a sales job. And that was the time after when I got my job, my first job. It was during that period I got to know Rinpoche. Okay, right from the beginning, when I first knew Rinpoche had always told me, his message to me with regards to what I should do was very consistent. And he always told me that I should be a writer or something to do with writing. And when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, sounds interesting. I was enthusiastic, outwardly enthusiastic, inwardly I was not, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go back to school. That's what was my fear. I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to go through the whole academic process again in order to get another degree, in order to write. So that was in my mind. I never ever actually said it to Rinpoche. I dare not. But the idea appealed to me nonetheless, but I didn't move in that direction. So my first job was only for about a year, I remember. Canon Marketing Malaysia as my sales job. I wrote in my book, There's No Way But Up. And then later on, then I was between jobs and I was trying to figure out my direction in life. And Rinpoche continued to tell me that I should pursue something along those lines. About writing. It's always the same thing with Rinpoche. And but he didn't give me a direction per se. He just told me that. And then what happened was, by that time, I thought, okay, I have my bills, I have my credit cards. I became more pragmatic. So I said, okay, maybe another sales job will be more, feasible for in consideration of my mounting credit card debt. So what happened was, I think it was about a year before I got my next job. And at that time, I was figuring out what I should do. And then I finally landed myself in this job selling cars. Because I kind of like cars. And I was reading a lot about it. And then I thought, why don't I do this? And at that time, it was like, the thought was appealing because I like cars, but at the same time, it was not something like, wow, it's not like it's like a career path that everybody, look up to or think it's a career in the first place. It didn't seem like one. So, but anyway, I did it. I sent my resume to a number of dealerships, and I got one position in Volvo. All right, and I did. And okay, I've got a strange message here, but I will address this later. So I ended up in Volvo, and when Rinpoche heard that I got this job, Rinpoche was a little disappointed. And he said, no, that's not the direction you should be taking, he told me. And then, but he didn't say anything more than that. He just said, that shouldn't be the direction. So what happened was, I did the job also, and I wasn't fantastic in it. I had some beginner's luck with some cars. Then in the end, it tapered off. And it was also another year, and then I decided to call it quits. Then at that time, I was deciding, okay, maybe now I should consider going into IT since I studied for it and since I got a degree, and my parents were nagging, were saying, "What are you doing with your life? You know, why don't you make something of yourself? I put you through school, through college, through, to Australia, and you come back and you do something else." So, okay, I understand. I told my parents and I said, okay, and then I started looking for jobs in IT. And I actually got a position in a startup, I remember. And the first round interviews, okay? So just as I was going to the next round, I informed Rinpoche. And Rinpoche, at that time, Rinpoche took it quite seriously. And he said that he looked at I remember we were in Kechara house at that time, and it was after a teaching or something like that. And then Rinpoche was in an audience room. Okay, there was a little room that Rinpoche meet with some students privately. And so it was a smaller room, and Rinpoche was looking at a tanka, and then he started to do a divination. I spoke about divination in the previous session. So Rinpoche was doing divination, and he said that, he told me that this job that I was going to take, I will not last in it as well. And the direction that I'm taking is not going to be a good one. I mean, he said, it's up to me, it's up to you. He was telling me this. It's up to you what you want to do. But ultimately, you should be going the direction that I have told you, one way or another. So that was it. And then Rinpoche later on said that, oh, he's planning to open a new outlet. And that time, there was a lot of things going on in Kechara organization, and Rinpoche was looking to expand on the outlets, and he was looking for a location. And there was this one I spoke about in another episode of Once Upon a Time with Rinpoche. So what happened was, it got me thinking, and I took it seriously because firstly it was a divination. I didn't ask for the divination, but Rinpoche did it for me anyway. And Rinpoche said it would not be good for me to go to do this job. So I listened, and I really contemplated, and I thought about the times when I was in the outlet, because I spent a lot of time with Rinpoche and with some of the Rinpoche's friends and students in Kechara Paradise. And I really, really liked the energy, the feeling of the shop, the feeling of working in Dharma, and talking about Dharma, and the feeling of, of just, about that what we were doing was Dharma, and the people were nice, and Rinpoche was very nice, of course. And it left a huge impression on me, although I didn't know much Dharma at that time because I was very young and also naive and directionless. But I took Rinpoche seriously, what Rinpoche told me, and considered my options. So I could go into the job, in the IT job that I was supposed to go to, or I could go into Kechara. It was not into writing, but it was into Kechara, and I liked the feeling and all that. So I decided to F it, so to speak. I decided to go, throw caution to the wind and just join Kechara. I forget what my friends would think, because no one's going to take it seriously. You're just going to be a shop assistant. So I didn't care, because I like what I was doing. I like being in the Dharma. I like reading about Dharma, talking about Dharma. I like the feeling of being among Dharma friends, and the feeling is much better than being in a work environment where it's just about money. So I took the plunge. I don't know who I told. I think I told Rinpoche at the beginning, or maybe somewhere in the middle, where I decided to go to ask to be, a part of this new outlet. And Rinpoche was very, very happy. And he told me later on, later on, I remember because there's a lot of work to be done, we went on pilgrimages and all that. It was during that period. We went on pilgrimage to a few places before I started the job. And then finally, I started the job, and then it was an opening of a new outlet. So it's a lot of stock taking, it's a lot of moving of things. And then after everything settled, the dust settled, and I was in the job, sitting in the shop, in the outlet. One day, Rinpoche came over. And he surprised me towards the end of my shift in the evening, and he took me out for dinner. I remember the weird thing was, I remember at that time it was KFC. He took me out, Rinpoche took me out KFC. Rinpoche didn't eat, but he bought me dinner. I was not vegetarian at the time, obviously. And so Rinpoche told me that he had a very strong premonition the direction I'm heading is the correct one, and that he will somehow, he doesn't know how, he told me. I remember Rinpoche said that he does not know how, but somehow this will lead me to writing. This is what Rinpoche said. So it will lead me to writing. And I was like, okay. So I'm happy that Rinpoche is happy for me, obviously. And I was happy. And as I did the job, it was not easy because in a sense I was just alone there, and at the same time it was I meet all sorts of characters, all sorts of people from the street. They come in, and some of them wanted to talk, and there was a whole slew of things that happened in between. And during that period, Rinpoche was intermittently trying to get me into writing. So what he did was he asked me to do some writing. Even before getting in this job, actually, the chronology is a bit off. Before I started the job, I remember Rinpoche started me on a writing project that he wanted a writing project on Dorje Shukden. Bear this in mind. Interesting is because Rinpoche didn't say he practiced. He didn't tell me. I didn't know what was the controversy, but he told me to read up about it first before I take up the project. So I did, and I thought it was interesting. At the same time, it was a bit controversial. The controversy surrounding it. You can read it about it on Rinpoche's blog. Rinpoche spoke about it extensively, and so Rinpoche wanted a piece of writing on this, not specifically on the controversy, but on the practice itself, on the practice of Dorje Shukden. And Rinpoche actually said that he has a sponsor for it. So he kind of hired me to do the work. So I took it up. And but the funny thing was, during that time, it was not easy to do this piece of writing because Rinpoche, being with Rinpoche, I was always with Rinpoche. So it's a whole night thing. And then in the daytime, we had to do some, we had some things going on. I had some things going on. So it was a struggle to balance my time at that time. So in the end, I couldn't produce the work. So I only did halfway, and the timing was too long. And I think it exceeded the time that was required. So Rinpoche was not happy, and it didn't finish. The project was not finished. And yeah, so I let it as it is. So whatever I could complete, I remember submitting it. And Rinpoche was not happy, and he said that you have not finished your writing and you've received sponsorship, whatever, you should return it. So in the end, I returned the complete money back. And that was when I learned about how Rinpoche handled funds with regards to projects and sponsorship of things. And when it comes to sponsor, Rinpoche is very strict because in a sense that if it's for a project, if it's for an endeavor, or it's for a particular reason, right? The funds must be directly towards it, and it must be used only for that thing. So if the work is not completed, if it's for a piece of work, for example, a piece of writing, and it's not completed, then Rinpoche said, by right, you should return it. And so actually I didn't want to return because I thought of returning half, but then Rinpoche said, no, you return everything. So I returned everything. So I returned everything. And that was quite an experience for me because I don't know, the whole writing thing was a struggle for me. And even later on, there were times where Rinpoche gave some little teachings, and so some students who are interested in writing, interested in forming a department for it, so they started to have meetings, and then they started to have how do you say, writing projects. So they wrote me in because of what Rinpoche said about me, and to do the writing. Okay, now before I continue, let me see, there's some messages I kind of missed. Wong Ken. All beings in the Dharma realm rebirth in the Western paradise. Thank you. Okay, I think it's some kind of Dharma as prayer. And Andre, pardon me, Pastor David, what is your parents' opinion about Rinpoche and his direction? Did they agree with Rinpoche or they were skeptic? My parents, that's a very good question. I didn't actually tell my parents about my direction that Rinpoche was trying to nudge me towards. To be honest, because my father was Buddhist, normally Buddhist. He used to go to the temple in a Thai temple in a place in where we live called Jalan Gasing. There's a Thai temple there, and he used to sweep the floor. He would pick up some books, free distribution books, and read them. And so he was okay with me. My mother, on the other hand, was Christian. So, you know, when I started bringing all these Tibetan Buddhist images back, she was a bit, you know, she understands, she respects me, but at the same time, she doesn't know what I'm doing, what I'm praying to. She thinks, sometimes she thought, I think at that time, I remember she remarked that she thought it was like nature spirits. She didn't know they were Buddhas because to her, it's too exotic. She's never seen it before. All right. And with regards to, with my parents, the biggest clash came not what I was doing. The biggest clash came when I moved out. And so because what Rinpoche wanted to do with me was to get me to be, it's kind of a rite of passage. In order to be an adult, in order to be more responsible, Rinpoche wanted me to move out on my own, to live on my own, to depend on myself, not depend on my parents, and to grow up that way, to mature that way. That was Rinpoche's plan for me. And so I agreed. I liked the way Rinpoche described it, and I liked the idea of being independent. So I did. I moved out. And my mother had issues about it initially. So, and with regards to what I was doing in Dharma, I do remember now. What my mother said was that initially she was asking me, when are you going to get a real job? She always thinks it's a phase. What I was doing is a phase in Dharma. So she was just waiting it out. She's waiting for the time where I would actually, you know, resign and go look for a proper job. In her words, proper job, or, you know, a real job. That's what my mother said to me. And I had to tell her that this is a proper job. This is more than a job. This is something that I believe in. And it's not so easy, because to explain to my mother, my parents, more my mother actually, because firstly, she's not Buddhist. Secondly, it's a Buddhist it's a spiritual organization. So it was a challenge for her to understand what it is, what I'm doing, what Dharma work is about. So she doesn't fully grasp it. And and also because, you know, she's Christian, so she kind of refrained from joining our activities, our events. And so there was a barrier there in that sense. I couldn't overcome that barrier because it came from her, in a sense that maybe she felt, I do feel that she thinks that I was trying to convert her. I was not. I was not, but that's why she kind of stayed away from events. So yeah, that was some of the challenges I met with my mother lah. With regards to writing, another point was Rinpoche in the end told me, one day he did tell me that I should come up with a book. And he gave me a few ideas. One of the ideas was to write a book about myself, my journey. And I took it up. I took that up because I thought that was a wonderful idea, because if it was about Dharma, or if it was about something else, a subject matter, right? Any other subject matter, it would be a struggle for me to write, because I'm not a fantastic writer, I think, at that time. So what I did was, I thought that, okay, it's my life. It's already in my head. I don't have to research. I don't have to look. So I just write out loud, you know. And I thought that that would make it easier to write. Of course, it was not easy lah. I don't know if any of you have written a book. It's not easy because you have to fill a certain amount of words to make it qualify as a book, okay? So it was I don't know, the whole process of writing the book was, to me, it took me about a year to 2 years, 1 year plus. And bear in mind, I was writing it part-time. All right, I was writing it part-time. And because it was, you have got to understand my relationship with Rinpoche, you know, in a sense that once I got to know Rinpoche always got me to hang out around with him. And with Rinpoche, it's not normal hours, it's not daytime hours, it's nocturnal. Rinpoche is very nocturnal. So it's like the whole night. And because I have to work in the outlets initially, right? So what I did was I had to write when in the outlets, or when I'm free, which is almost I'm never free. So it was like after work, Rinpoche will call me over, and then we'll be doing things like we'll be talking, we'll be watching something. And in the earlier years with Rinpoche, it was more casual. It was just watching movies. Rinpoche just at times we spend a lot of time just talking, and going places, meeting people. And Rinpoche wants me to tag along with him all the time for many years, many years. Of course, I was not Rinpoche all the time, but many of the times I was. Rinpoche always got me to hang around with him all the time, and it was a challenge in a sense to balance that time with Rinpoche and at the same time work and at the same time to write. And in the outlets is usually, of course, is ideal because the outlet is not, you know, in KP it was not like a lot of people, but because when I was very new to writing, so it was difficult for me to concentrate and to put things down. But somehow or other, I managed to do it anyway in the end. Yeah, so that's where my first book arose, which is it's called There's No Way But Up. All right, so far I have 4 books. Let me see. There's No Way But Up. There is Vajragini. Tales My Lama Told Me. There's Vajragini. Vajragini is a book on, it's a picture book of pilgrimage spots in Nepal, associated with Vajragini and some other popular places. And then I have a book on relationships. Yes, relationships, called Conversations in Love. Okay, it's a very, very odd book, but Rinpoche wanted me to do it because, well, he just wanted me to do it. So, because, oh yeah, there's a reason. Because it's actually from Rinpoche's teachings, and Rinpoche felt it was inappropriate to come from Rinpoche himself because he's a monk. So it would be better if someone like me, who is a lay person, talk about this subject matter. So I did it very differently. I didn't want to make it another Dharma book kind of thing. So what I did was, it was literally conversations. Yeah, I created 4 characters, and they were talking to each other. And each chapter was pertaining to a subject that was in Rinpoche's teachings, which is, and that teaching is based on vows that Rinpoche came up with from his years of counseling couples making counseling couples who are, you know, on a verge of breakup, on a verge of divorce. Rinpoche did many these are private counseling sessions. So he came out to this conclusion about relationships and how to maintain relationships, put them together. All right. So the vows that Rinpoche produced, each vow became a subject. A topic, a chapter. So that was what it was lah. Yeah, so that was my journey on becoming a writer in the initial years. Okay, how I went into writing. This is. I mean, I was speaking, all over the place. But okay, chronologically, I entered the outlets. Okay, I mean, I did some projects with Rinpoche, but I was not a writer yet. The projects failed, of course. Then while in the outlets, I tried to attempt writing, and at that period of time also, there were some students who were into writing. Some of them were professional writers themselves, who did it for a living. What happened was journalists and stuff like that. And what happened is they formed a department of Kechara called Kechara Media and Publications, which is one of the core departments that Rinpoche wanted right from the beginning of Kechara House. He wanted a department of Kechara in a sense that to produce books, to produce articles, to produce writing that disseminates the Dharma directly and indirectly, of course. So that department was formed. I was not part of it yet. I had a journey to go before I ended up in that department, okay? So my journey was in outlets. Then there was a crisis in Rinpoche's household because Rinpoche didn't have assistance to help him with his work. Because Rinpoche, as you know, has a lot of work in a sense of assisting people, assisting to do a lot of background work for Rinpoche. And and in Rinpoche's household, it was mismanaged because of the nature of Rinpoche's work, which is around the clock. So what happened was I took a turn from the outlets. I was suggested to help Rinpoche with this. So I went to the Ladrang. Ladrang is Rinpoche's household. All right. So while in the Ladrang, I was, for lack of a better word, a major disaster. But but it was a lot of time, even more time with Rinpoche. It's like every day, non-stop, and assisting Rinpoche, helping Rinpoche with his food, with his with the offerings. Because with Rinpoche, he has to do a lot of offerings. Because the reason why Rinpoche do a lot of offerings is actually because of the organization. So Rinpoche feels that in order to benefit people, a lot of merit is needed. And in order to generate that merit, Rinpoche does it in many, many ways, of course. One of the ways that Rinpoche generates the merit is the offerings he makes every single day. So if Rinpoche is going to do the offerings himself, it will be not possible for Rinpoche to do his other work. So that's where I help. Part of my responsibility is the offerings. So I come in and I do the water offerings every single day. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it because bear in mind, the offerings is water, basically, making water offerings, changing the candles. And it's about 100 over bowls, I think, of different sizes. And the altar that time, Rinpoche had a Vajragini. Even though the Bodhgaya Vajragini, the altar that was the main altar. It was Bodhgaya Vajragini, and the offerings were laid out almost all around Vajragini. I remember that time, and various butter lamps in between with candles inside, and the butter lamps were. This is Rinpoche's idea, They were decorated with pearls, so they're kind of like adornments that Rinpoche designed and had another student put on each butter lamp. So all the butter lamps are dripping with pearls. Inside is pearls and candles, and there's about 100 over bowls of offerings. So I make the offerings. So every day I make the offerings, and I help Rinpoche with that, with the food, serving Rinpoche, because and I help Rinpoche with household things, cleaning a little bit, with the dogs, feeding them, with all sorts of things, and also assisting Rinpoche when he wants to go out, meet people, drive Rinpoche, stuff like that. More like a personal assistant than actually anything else. So what happened was, at that time, that's what I was doing. Then one day Rinpoche said, do you want to, because that time what I did, one of the things I had to do was to clean Rinpoche's dog shit. Rinpoche's dog, there's an area, okay, that has newspaper that Muumu's defecates on, shits on, for the lack of better word. And I had to pick up the newspaper, clean it, and I had to do that. And then I remember Rinpoche called me, and then I went there, and Rinpoche asked me what I was doing, and I said that. And then Rinpoche said, do you want to do this for the rest of your life? Is this what you want to do? And then Rinpoche on trail on and say, basically the message at that time, I can't remember exactly what Rinpoche said, but basically Rinpoche wanted to drive home the fact that I should be doing writing. Yeah. So it led to a point where that's when I actually started on this book. I'm sorry, the chronology is all over the place because there's certain things sticks out in my mind, so I have to say it first. Okay, I have a question here. That is, or is it one? No, more than one. Okay, two questions. By Andrew. By your description of your close relationship with Rinpoche, is Rinpoche consider you as main student like Mapa and Milarepa relationship? No, I'm not. It's not Rinpoche's main student. That's for sure. I'm just one idiot student of Rinpoche's. I wish I was Milarepa, okay? I wish. Number two, if Rinpoche is still alive now, will he accept the idea of making sci-fi adaptation of Tibetan Buddhist story? Example, adaptation of Ralotsawa story in 34th century, or he will not agree with that idea. Sci-fi adaptation. What's the reason of why you want to do an adaptation of a biography of a Lama? All right, because the story of a Lama is meant to inspire faith in people. So if you want to change that, then it will not be a biography. It will not be something to instill faith. It will be just a story. You can do any story you want. It's not a problem. I don't think Rinpoche will be against the idea, but it will be regarded very differently. If you're going to produce something that's totally different, then it's fictional. So it's just fiction. So there's a difference lah. All right, because some people do regard, because some of the stories of the Lamas, because of what they have accomplished, it seems very fantastic. So they said that maybe it was, fiction. So that's really debatable. So I would not go into that, but I would just say that because it's regarded as a scriptural source, the biographies are a genre of scriptures that's meant to be read as a source of inspiration for our practice. So I don't see how this will end up that way. But if you're going to write a story that, you're going to have a story that is, fictional and sci-fi and has a Dharma element, I don't see why Rinpoche will not agree with it anyway. But probably not call it Ralotsawa, the character Ralotsawa. Okay, that it may be misleading. Okay, that's just my answer to your questions. All right, so yeah. There's one more thing. There's few things I wanted to say. Okay, I need to backtrack. Sorry. When I first met Rinpoche, just before I entered into Kechara, okay, Rinpoche had other students, and one of the students, Rinpoche's had similar advice for the person, which is to study. To be a writer/translator. So Rinpoche did divination for that person and said, if this person is going to be study translation, it will be good. The outcome will be good. And then Rinpoche turned to me, and then he did another divination, and he said, oh, the advice is also for you. You too can be one. I was thinking study translation, which means study Tibetan in order to do translation work. At that time, and then there was a lot of research being done by Rinpoche, or other Rinpoche had students on where to study, places to go, in the various institutions in India, the Tibetan institutions, where like in Varanasi and all that. Varanasi is a place in India, in a city in India, where there is a school that caters to this translation and study of the Tibetan language. So what happened was, at that time, I was very, very new, and I didn't immediately, I was flattered that Rinpoche thought about me, but at the same time, I was like, I have no idea how to go about it, and I put it in the afterburner. Just put it at the back of my mind, I never took action on it, so it never came to fruition. So I never actually became a translator in the end, because I never studied the language. The Tibetan language is a very interesting. In recent times, I did, as in the last few years, I did start studying a little bit when the monks were, when the monks came over for some work here. I mean, they did help with some studies of the Tibetan language, but I can see that it's not an easy language to study. The written language itself is very complex. All right. So that was one aspect of me becoming a writer. So one of the things I noticed over the years about Rinpoche is this. Rinpoche has a very good eye for people, in a sense that he's very good with casting people in what they can do. Casting as in like a director, casting, so if Rinpoche were a film director, Rinpoche would be really, really good in picking up people to fill certain roles based on his observation, based on his profiling of people and what they, their character and their likes and dislikes that would fit a particular role or a particular position in the organization. So Rinpoche had actually helped bring in people to fill certain roles in organization, to start off new departments, based on this ability of Rinpoche. Rinpoche has this natural ability, and it's highly accurate. It is very, and if we pursue it all the way, sometimes it's totally like, for me, it was, when Rinpoche said it, it was like, oh, it blew my mind away in a sense that I never thought I would be one. At that time, it was many, many years already, I was like, I had already studied, gone to school, gone to college, got my degree, and I was never thinking, oh, I was going to be a writer. I didn't think about changing, and then Rinpoche just comes in and say, oh, you should start writing. I was like, it just blew my mind at that time. So that's how it was. And I noticed Rinpoche has done this for not just me, for a number of people in the organization, and provided them with a place, a department, funding, stipend, work. There's an endless stream of work that with Rinpoche, there's always a lot of work. And you will be amazed. I can't really tell you exactly what Rinpoche can, get people to do. But Rinpoche is very visionary in that sense. Visionary because he will see he envisioned a whole department. He'll envision the type of work that this department will do. And this individual will fill this role. And he'll be able to tell, okay, what work to do. And constantly there'll be ideas. With Rinpoche, when it comes to ideas, it's endless. It's non-stop. It's just that Rinpoche, over the years, put a stop to his ideas because he realized people cannot keep up. There's so much ideas that come from, and in order to fulfill all of Rinpoche's ideas, it will need manpower, it will need funding, and so forth. So in the end, we're limited by people, limited by funding. People first, then funding. All right, that's how it is. So that's how Rinpoche works, and how I was pulled into the picture was just like that, in a sense of how Rinpoche envisioned me as being a writer right from the beginning. And he just has this knack. And I mean, I came out with books and all that, and but I still don't feel I'm a fantastic writer. But I mean, I can write, I can string a few sentences here and there, of course, I still can. I just need a really good editor to edit my work. But yeah, it's just that I have a message, you see. At the end of the day, I realize as a writer, more importantly is not so much of writing the perfect, grammatically correct piece of work. It's more about whether you have a story to tell, whether you have a message to convey. If you have a message to convey, a story to tell, then you are a writer. And it is that ability to convey that message, to convey that story, to tell the story, to set the tone, and so forth, is what you do as a writer. And I don't know, it's always a struggle. It's always been a struggle for me to write. It will always be, I realize, but somehow or other, someone will be benefited. That's my way to do Dharma work. It's according to Rinpoche. One of the ways I can do Dharma work. Another one is, of course, because I guess I have a natural. The other thing is me being able to, as a pastor, to teach. I'm, really good with the gift of the gab. So I'm here to teach and share. Okay, I see some question. This is from Lily. Interesting. PDL, similar to Sharon's question on motivation, what advice, motivation would you give to someone embarking on this journey to learning Tibetan and translation, especially with the current situation of verbal education? Similar question to motivation. What advice, motivation? With regards to Tibetan, right? If you're talking of learning the language itself, you need to put effort. It needs to be a little bit more effort than most languages. By the way, the study of languages is very interesting. It depends on what type of language. Some languages, and depends on what language you're used to. So for the language that we're used to, for example, if you are English speaking, so if you're studying another language that's similar, using similar scripts, similar alphabets, it'll be easier. So there's a certain category when, apparently, as an English speaker, a certain category, because I saw some documentary about things like that. As an English speaker, studying Tibetan is going to be a struggle, an uphill struggle. It's not going to be easy. It will not come easily, as compared to if you're studying to, like French or some European language, because it's similar. There's a lot of similarities. But with the Tibetan, it's totally different. Even the way you place the alphabets is different. It's an alphabetical system as well. The script is an alphabetical system, but the way you place, you stack it, you string it together, and there is prefixes and suffixes that you don't pronounce. And then there's a way of you stack up vertically the alphabets together, and it forms a certain sound. And it depends if it's just a normal Tibetan word or it is a Sanskrit word. Because if you're going to translate old scriptures, there'll be a lot of mantras, a lot of Sanskrit. And the way Sanskrit works, it's really complicated. So I don't really have an advice. It's just that be prepared to, you do need a teacher, someone who can guide you. You cannot, if you're going to do it yourself, it's going to be even more difficult. It'll be better if you have someone to guide you, someone who is experienced. You can watch it, you can learn it. Anything can be learned by yourself nowadays, because especially when it's on the internet, there's a lot of resources now. I did notice, I've been trying to watch some in the past, about a year ago, and I do notice more nowadays on Tibetan language. But bear in mind, it is going to be difficult lah. So it's just a matter of what do you want. Firstly, when you're learning Tibetan language, what do you hope to accomplish? Okay, is it going to be verbal? Because verbal is different from written. Totally different. They have an honorific for, and then it depends, because it's verbal, you have to learn the honorifics. Because if you're speaking to a lama, so the language is totally different than if you're speaking to a ordinary person or someone your peer. So they have a whole, it's just like Japanese. I was told Japanese also have the similar thing, which is honorifics. That's for verbal. Then for written, that's going to be a struggle. As I said, there's Sanskrit, there's the language itself, when it's written is different. And most of the text you'll be dealing with is really, really old. And it's somewhat on top of that is translation of Sanskrit texts. So it's very, very technical. So it depends on what you hope to accomplish. If it's just verbal, then it'll be easier actually. You don't actually have to learn how to write. You just have to learn the language itself. And the structure of the language, the grammar, I think it's similar to Chinese in a sense that it's different from English. So you cannot, because in English there's a certain order. I don't know how you call it, syntax, something like that. And so the Chinese is different from the English. So if you're a Chinese speaker and you learn Tibetan, you might find the structure similar. If I remember correctly, because I learned it a little bit. Okay, so that's all I can say about that, about translation. It really, really depends. You have to ask yourself, what do you hope to accomplish? Okay, if you really want to do the scholarly thing, and in order to read and understand the scriptures, then it needs a lot of work. And then at the same time, if it's just to recite, some people just want to recite the text. You just want to pick up the Tibetan text and be able to recite. Then it's a lot easier. Then it's just a matter of learning how to read. Okay, I can more or less do it, but you need a lot of practice as well. Because the Tibetan alphabets, the way they stack, it's quite complicated in that sense. So, but once you get used to it, you can recite already. You can read it already. Then it's just a matter of practice. Just like any other language, you have to practice. So when you recite the what you call the pechas, then you just, with practice, you get better, you get faster. Initially, it's going to be painfully slow because you are deciphering when they stack up all the letters, when they put all the letters together, you have to decipher. And then if the text is old, sometimes it's very hard to read it. Sometimes they even make shortcuts, so you just have to figure out. Oh, I see. I think I know why you're asking this question. More importantly, I think it's having someone to refer to, Then it's not so much of it's becoming more about Tibetan. Okay, Cynthia, like my motivation to learn Tibetan was pretty much to write and typeset Tibetan for design purposes. Yeah, that is a lot easier lah. You just need to know how they stack up, and that's it. How to pronounce it. It will be an added bonus, not so much as to learn the language. You're not even learning the language. You're just reading it. But anyway. Most people learn Tibetan for only a few reasons. One of them is to recite the text. Another one is to talk to the monks. Okay, the third one is you want to be a scholar yourself. You want to translate texts. That will need a lot of work. The third one will need a lot of work. And that was the one that Rinpoche did the divination for me, and it came out good. And I didn't take it up. And you know what? Years later, Rinpoche will continue to tease me about it, and saying that I missed a great opportunity to do that. I mean, of course, now I can still study. It's not that I cannot. But it's different when you're older. But anyway, I am still trying to pick up the language. But anyway, more importantly is the direction that Rinpoche wanted me to go, which was writing, and then eventually Rinpoche added teaching. And he saw me as a person to share the Dharma. Not so much as like a Lama teaching. I'm not a Lama. Don't ask me for, to do all sorts of rituals, and definitely not initiations and all that, but more as a person to share the Dharma, as a pastor, to share the Dharma, because I've been with Rinpoche long enough. So I've picked up a lot of things, a lot of knowledge, and over the years, and I can share them, And the whole point about this program is to do that. Once upon a time with Rinpoche. So it's to give you the feeling of being with Rinpoche as much as I can, and as much as I can convey, So, and today's one was, we're using my story. I was trying to convey Rinpoche as a visionary Lama, one who sees people's potential. He looks at people not as what they are right now. They see them as, like Rinpoche saw me not as who I was. At that time, I was just a bumbling bumbling young person youngish at that time, who was directionless. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was just following whatever the wind takes me, So I went into cars, I went into, sales and all that. And then I ended up in Kechara because of Rinpoche. And I must say, this is my third job. Yeah, and it lasted from well over, 2006, I think, 2005. Right now is 2021, so it's about 16 years. It's 16 years in Kechara. And it's been quite long. I didn't think about it. I don't see myself as, like, I never thought of it as like a long career. It's just doing it because of, I'm in it, and I have a passion for it, and I like Dharma. I like many aspects of Dharma. Of course, the main aspect is it benefits people. The other aspect is I like the philosophy of it. I like that it makes sense, and the philosophy adds to benefit in the sense that, once you understand things, you're able to change things in yourself and people. And as you know more Dharma, you're able, it's just as Rinpoche says it, Rinpoche says that when you know more Dharma, what happens is not that you know more things to fill your mind with. That's not the purpose. The philosophy, the terms, it's not something to, that only the upper elite echelon of practitioners can discuss among themselves, debate among themselves. It is more tools for us to help others and ourselves. Rinpoche calls it a tool to help others and ourselves, rather than something to talk about and to discuss and to only share with certain elite people. That's not the point of Dharma. That's not the point of the philosophy in Dharma. Okay, all the things that we discuss in Lamrim and all that. It is tools to help us accomplish something higher. All right? You're welcome, Lily. I'm sorry I didn't have much of a motivation, but for you and whoever you have in mind, Lily, but it really depends what you want to do with the translation. When you study a language, what you want to hope to accomplish. Because a lot of people, when they study language, it's more of a conversational thing, a verbal thing rather than written. But in Tibetan, it's mostly people study more for the writing, as in to read, to recite the scriptures. A lot of people, especially Westerners, they learn the language to be able to read the scriptures, and then later on move on into becoming scholars of it, translating works, And but in order to do that, you need to do a lot of work. You need to be the type that is a nerd, a total nerd. You need to just immerse yourself in it, and read as much as you can, and study as much, and explore. You must have a passion. If you do not have a passion, you can't make it as a scholar translator. You need to have a passion. Basically a person who has no, who's like, as you watch in the movies, those mad professors who was just into their work and that's it, nothing else. That kind of life and that kind of passion for it. Then you will, because there's a lot of scriptures, especially if you go into the Tibetan, because many of the scriptures in the Tibetan canon, the Kangyo, the Tangyo, many of them have not been translated in English or any other language. It's just in Tibetan. And many of them, of these texts, are what remains of the scriptures that was lost in India. They have just been translated in Tibetan. And they translate in Tibetan, and it's preserved till now because of that. We're just very, very lucky. And because of that, it'll be good if someone does more translation work. It's a lot. They were talking of thousands of scriptures over, all right? That's waiting to be translated, waiting to be reinterpreted. Because even if you translate, it's an archaic language. It's written in a way that is may not be relatable to a modern practitioner. So it needs to be interpreted. Okay, this is what Sharon says. Highly useful, as we can all do with more translators, to preserve the precious teachings that are not already translated into English, so that more non-Tibetan reading Buddhists can benefit from the English translations. Yeah, of course. Especially to do with certain rare teachings. Anyway, thank you very much. Anything else you can ask me? I don't really have anything else except that, so until today, I'm still doing a bit of writing. And I will continue to do more writing to, in the direction that Rinpoche wants me to go. Yeah. And I remember, in order to encourage, something happened in Nepal, I remember, with regards to writing. At a Vajrayogini temple, I remember, I don't know what inspired me to do this, but I did this. What happened already? I remember I made a promise to Rinpoche to complete my book. Yeah, I remember I made a promise to Rinpoche to complete my book, because at the time I was struggling with it, and I don't know. There's a lot of things in my life that I started doing, but I never complete. And this was at that time, and at that point in time, it was on that verge of happening like that again. So, I think I made it not for the book. Sorry. I think I requested Rinpoche for Vajrayogini. Yeah. I think I remember that. I knew Rinpoche would not say, I'm going to give you initiation now, and you're going to be initiated in Vajrayogini. Of course, I know Rinpoche will not do that. But I thought it was auspicious because we went on a pilgrimage to Nepal, right? Okay, this is how the story goes. I went with Rinpoche on a pilgrimage to Nepal, and we were visiting the Vajrayogini temples, and I was just inspired by Rinpoche explaining about the temple and all that. And I thought, I know Rinpoche is not going to accept it, but I'm going to request anyway. I bought a few things, and then I offered, in the middle of everything, I offered Rinpoche some offerings, and I said, I requested for Vajrayogini from Rinpoche. And Rinpoche said that I will consider if you finish your book. Okay, that's how it's related to writing. So I did finish, and then Rinpoche over the years did say he will, but I mean, unfortunately, my bad karma, I never did fruition. But I remember that, and I did finish the book, and I remember Rinpoche was very, very pleased, and he gave me something in relations to Vajrayogini. Okay, it's a kind of personal, I won't say it on camera now, but he did. And I was quite happy. So anyway, I don't know whether you know the significance of Vajrayogini, because there's all sorts of people watching this. It's just, as in, I don't know, in a nutshell, Vajrayogini is a tantric practice that is a meditation that is given from a lama to the student through a rite of initiation. It's a ritual that one has to be done by the Lama. The Lama has to initiate you into the practice before you can actually do the meditation, the practice, as we call it. Okay, just as in a nutshell, so that you understand. All right. Anything else? If you have any questions, if not, I would end for the night. Miyaki, good night, Pastor David, and thank you for. Okay, I think you're leaving. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining, Miyaki. I think you're going off for the night. I'll be ending soon anyway. So if there's no other questions or thoughts or anything else, did I miss any questions? I don't think so, right? Don't think I missed any questions. Yeah, I don't think I missed. I don't see any question that I missed. All right. Thank you very much. I will do dedication now. And today's program was, of course, sponsored by Mr. Lam and family. Thank you very much. With the dedication that His Eminence Tsem Rinpoche returned to Kechara Forest Retreat swiftly to turn the wheel of Dharma again. All right, and if you can, please do help go on the Vajra Secrets to sponsor this program. The money doesn't go to me; it goes into the organization, and it's a special merit when you sponsor a Dharma teaching. Is a special merit for us to gain realizations, because the Dharma teaching is to implant Dharma in people. So when you sponsor it, you create the cause for you to have Dharma realizations, because the Dharma will enter them very deep. All right, okay. Thank you very much. Janju Sencho Rinpoche, Make Panang Gyushe, Keba Yama Me Bayang, Gonen Go to Pawasho, Tony Tonga Rinpoche, Make Panang Gyushe, Keba Yama Me Bayang, Gonen Go to Pawasho, Dazo Genes Apage Wadi, Tanandroa Gunlan Campada, Cheba Jozo, Lonson Drop Away, Dumping Porindo Sa Shesho, Kewa Kundo Yandala Lamada, Dremi Joki Pala Longchoche, Sada Langi Antanrajoni, Dochi Changi Go Bang Yutosho, Gewadi Yudoda, Lama Sange Jukuni, Joa Chika Malupa, De Sala Go Basho. Chuju Jabo Sonkaba, Choson Nama Pewala, Gege Jamaji Wada, Tuni Malo Shawasho, Dada Shenge Dosundan, Juash Latini, Gawa Losan Drapai, Tampan Yuriba, Gyushe, Nimo Della Sentele, Nemeko Intelection, Yasanta to Della Bell, Conchason Jingulo, Conchason Otroso, Conchason Tashi, Jason Lama Kusa Raptunche, Namkachin Jugi Bada, Losanta Mejomi Samsungi, Drumusu Takto Ne Gyushe, Gangri Rawe Koa Shingam, Pendant Dewa Malukyong Wine. Chen Rezik 1000 Gasoi, Sharp City Badu Dan Yuji, Hong Tombing or Maloba, Denden Dollar Sadoso, Kodan Temple Lojana, Geba Zoshi shook the cell. Thank you. Good night, everybody.